Good afternoon, everyone, and hope that you're having a good Thursday. We are happy that even in this midst of anxiety and trying times that we can still study God's Word together. Pray that you are doing so with your family. Encourage you to go back and listen to our thoughts from last night. I know that we had some issues with the YouTube feed, but they're there on Facebook, and if you need access to that, we can find a way to get that to you. But ultimately, it's important, I think, for you to go and listen to some of those things as we talked about last night from the book of Romans. That this is a time for us as Christians to truly examine what it means when Paul said there in Romans 1, "I am not ashamed of the gospel." So, I encourage you to go back, listen to those things, check them out. Obviously, leave comments, questions, things that you might want to discuss at a different time. Certainly, feel free to leave those things there, and hopefully we're efforting this Sunday to bring worship into your home with you and your family. Again, we're trying our best to find an avenue in which we can sort of all be together in the digital format until we're able to all be together again in the building. So please be patient with us. Please help us out, and certainly want to continue to do that and continue to find ways for all of us to be able to worship and study together. Today, as we begin for our 3rd through 6th graders, let's offer up some of these questions from our study on Tuesday evening. Number 1, who was Agag? We spoke of him on Tuesday night. Who was he? Number 2, this is where we spent several minutes Tuesday night and even last night as well in our thoughts during class. What does it mean that it is to obey is better than sacrifice? Number 3, who was Haman's father? We made the transition there, talking about sort of why there's a reason why we brought up Haman's lineage or Haman's ancestry. There was a reason behind that, and why we went back into 1 Samuel. I noticed my typo. I put 1 Kings. I'm not sure why, but it was from 1 Samuel 15. What was the connection there, and who was Haman's father? He obviously in that ancestry as well. And then finally, what did Mordecai do that made Haman angry? There was something specific that we discussed right at the end of class on Tuesday that Haman was upset about specifically, that others had done, but Mordecai would not. And so, what was that? All right. Today's devotional, again, we're still in the book of Esther for now. We'll continue this study probably through the next week or two. And I wanted to pause just for a moment and just say, I know that once we all get back together, we're going to be very focused on being together and experiencing that and loving on each other. And we want to continue these Bible studies. I think there's some value in that. And so we want to continue doing that, and hope that you'll stay a part of that even after we are able to get back in the building together. For today, we begin in verse 7 of chapter 3. This is after the fact that Haman is upset with Mordecai, and he's upset with the fact that Mordecai has revealed himself to be a Jew. Now, we've been talking about this idea this entire time that we've been speaking about Esther, that she has not made that known to anyone. She has sort of kept that to herself by the advice, or through the advice, of Mordecai. Mordecai was basically giving her sort of an idea that, there's going to come a time where it's going to be important for you to tell who you are, where you're from, and all of those things. But right now, maybe it's better if you just keep that sort of to yourself. Well, now that the discussion has taken place among these men who were bowing down before Haman, and Haman is upset because he doesn't understand why Mordecai won't do it, and then he finds out Mordecai is a Jew. Now we have this scene set where Haman is now going to take that plot that he had in the back of his mind. He's going to now take that, and he's going to turn that all the way up. We start that here in verse 7. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pure, that is, they cast lots, before Haman day after day, and they cast it month after month, to the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. And Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people." Now think about this. He's waited for months to bring this up. He has been biding his time, planning and plotting this entire time to eradicate this group of people, and now he sees his opening. There is a certain people, Haman said, scattered abroad and dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from those of every other people, and they do not keep the king's laws, so that it is not to the king's profit to tolerate them. First of all, there's a lie. There's an absolute lie. These men and women of the Jewish heritage, of the Jewish upbringing, were by all means keeping the laws of the kings. There's no way they would have been able to survive in that particular time period, in that particular area. Again, we've mentioned this multiple times, but it bears repeating here. If they were going to disobey the rules of these kings would have killed them on sight, would have had no other reason to even give any pause to that. Again, we've mentioned it that the Jews were not the captives of the Persian Empire. The Jews were not the captives of the Medes. The Jews were the captives of the Babylonians, who had been defeated, who had been sort of swept off the earth here. So if it were true that they were not keeping the laws, if they were causing trouble, it would have already been handled. So he's telling a lie immediately. But verse 9, if it please the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed, and I'll pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who have charge of the king's business, that they may put it into the king's treasuries. Okay, so now we look at step 2. Step 1 was to absolutely, without hesitation, lie about the people. Step 2 here is to bribe the king. I'll pay you 10,000 talents, and I'll make sure that you have money, extra money. Well, did the king need the money? Of course not. But the king's going to take the money. That's for certain. Because again, the king doesn't understand why Haman has such a hatred and such an immense loathing of these people. So to him, it's free money. It's free money. And it's not going to hurt his people. It's just going to hurt these people that he has no interest in or connection to anyway. So the king took his signet ring from his hand. He gave it to Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money is given to you, the people also, to do with them as it seems good to you. Now, it's frightening when you consider that this king, Ahasuerus, a man whose morals were certainly less than desirable, when he is able to callously make a decision about the destruction of an entire group of people and not have any sort of conscience about that feeling. He simply said to Haman, you basically can go do whatever you want to. Whatever money you need, it'll be given to you. I appreciate your donation to the kingdom, but whatever you need, just let us know and we'll take care of it. And hey, go ahead and do what it is you want to do. Do with them as it seems good to you. Now, verse 12, the king's scribes were summoned on the 13th day of the first month. So now we've gone another month into the future. An edict according to all that Haman commanded was written to the king's satraps, to the governors over all the provinces, to the officials of all the peoples, to every province in its own script and every people in its own language. It was written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's signet ring. You'll notice there the importance of that phrasing and the way it's written there. It would have been one thing for Haman to have sent this out and people read this in the name of Haman. There might have been some who would have said, well, wait a minute, does the king even back this up? Is this something that's coming from just Haman, or is it coming from somewhere else? But they're not going to question it when they see the name King Ahasuerus, and especially when they see that the letter is sealed with the king's signet ring given to Haman by Ahasuerus. Letters were sent, verse 13, by couriers to all the king's provinces with instruction to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, in one day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. Okay, so here's what we have. We have Haman is given this letter plenty of time to circulate and for the execution to take place. He's giving it practically a year. Basically 1 year from his conversation with Ahasuerus and him being given permission to go out and eradicate these people. Basically 1 year later, he's going to do so. He is going to kill. I mean, look at the instruction. Destroy, kill, and annihilate. I mean, that is redundant. It is absolutely redundant, but Haman wanted it known by everyone who read this. There was going to be no confusion. No confusion whatsoever. It was simply going to be, I want all of these people gone. And I don't mean moved to another location. I want them all dead, and I want them destroyed. Again, the viciousness, the violence in these thoughts is horrifying. Now, verse 14, a copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province by proclamation to all the peoples to be ready for that day. The couriers went out hurriedly by order of the king, and the decree was issued in Susa, the citadel. Now, here's what I want you to pay attention to, verse 15. We tried to hurry kind of through this so we could settle right here at the end of verse 15. The king and Haman sat down to drink. Okay, now, I don't know these two men or what's going through their mind exactly, but I can sort of guess. These two men are perfectly happy with their actions. They're perfectly comfortable. They're at ease with their choices, their actions, and their words. And again, that is terrifying to think about. That is heartbreaking to think about. That these men, that these normal human beings, for all intents and purposes, would sit down to have a drink with each other, to sit down to share a meal perhaps, to sit down to share a conversation, and not feel anything. And what makes that even more obvious is the last part there, verse 15, and that is the city of Susa, where they were staying, is thrown into confusion. Now, the reason why I bring that up, the reason why I say that that's important for us to notice is everybody else in the entire citadel, in the entire city of Susa, has no idea why they're doing what they're doing. It makes no sense to anyone else. Now, I don't know how it was taken in the rest of the provinces, but we know right here in Susa, the entire city is in shock. They don't understand it. They don't get it. It's hard to stomach. It's hard to even consider or think about. But it all comes and it stems from this man, Haman, and his mission of hate. On Tuesday, we talked about the fact that he was looking perhaps back over his ancestry and looking at revenge, perhaps, looking at this being motivated by rage, being motivated by destruction and hate and anger. And here we called it a plot of hate. Well, now it is moved past plotting, and it is now his mission to hatefully, spitefully, maliciously annihilate and eradicate the Jews. Now, as you leave the story here, and we'll pick up tomorrow night, as you leave the story here, it's horrifying, it's troubling, it's scary because we've seen things like this even in our own world. We've seen dictators take over countries and attempt to destroy or do away with groups of people because they disagreed with them or they did things that they didn't like. And oftentimes we'll make comments perhaps in conversation about those particular things or those particular people. We'll say, I pray that those things will never happen ever again to anyone. And rightfully so, because if you can put yourself in the position of someone like Mordecai, a man simply doing his job, and from what we can understand, doing his job very well, and simply because of his heritage, there is a man who says, I'm going to not only do away with you, I'm going to kill every single person that comes through the same line as you. Every single person who has the same background, ancestry as you, I am going to kill. And the thought that must be going through, and the pain, the mental anguish, the emotional anguish, and the physical, perhaps even anguish that Mordecai and Esther are going to go through as they hear these things. And so, like I said, as you leave this story, you think about those times in our world's history where people have tried to do these kinds of things and how that makes you feel, and you can sort of, kind of understand a little better, perhaps, how Mordecai and Esther felt. And the reason why I bring that up is because as we step into chapter 4 tomorrow night, you're going to see this is an opportunity This is a chance for God to show out in the form of this young woman, in the form of this lady Esther, and in the form of her father figure Mordecai. God is going to show out. God can do so much with our little. We think, well, I can't do much. Well, that may be correct. That may be true. You may not be able to do as much as maybe you wish. But know this, that God can do so much with our little. And don't ever forget that. Be encouraged by that today. Find something small that you can do. Find something that you can do during this time of separation. And we'll study tomorrow night together Esther chapter 4. And we'll see how God uses Esther, uses Mordecai to do some incredibly amazing things when it comes to protecting his people. Hope that you all have a wonderful evening. As always, we try to close these down by encouraging you. If you've got questions, if you've got something on your mind, on your heart, and you want to speak to someone, please feel free to do so. Please feel free to contact me, contact the church office, reach out, and let us help you. And even as we study together, let's all grow closer to God and to His Word. Again, hope you have a wonderful evening. Look forward to continuing our study, if the Lord wills, tomorrow night.